My daughter's first birthday should have been one of the happiest days of my life. I imagined laughter, cake smeared on her tiny face, and the people I love gathered to celebrate her first trip around the sun. Instead, I spent the afternoon staring at a half-eaten cake and unopened presents, holding back tears while my husband took photos pretending everything was fine. My parents never showed up. My sister never even texted. No call, no explanation. Just silence. 2 days later, my mother posted a glowing message on Facebook. So proud of my baby girl's big promotion. You've earned every bit of it, sweetheart. There she was, my sister Claire, surrounded by champagne, coworkers, and yes, our parents, smiling like they hadn't just crushed my heart. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a choice. Before I go any further, let me introduce myself. My name's Olivia. I'm 32 years old, and until that day, I thought I understood what family loyalty meant. But as I watched my daughter blow out her single candle with no grandparents around to witness it, I realized something deeper. Loyalty isn't real when it only flows in one direction. And this story? It's about what happened next, and how I decided to rewrite the guest list, not just for that party, but for the rest of my life. But before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that hit where it hurts. Your support helps us keep telling the ones that matter most. Let's rewind a bit. 6 weeks before Ava's birthday, I sent out invitations. Not fancy ones, just digital cards with a soft pink balloon theme and the words, "Our little sunshine turns 1." I included the date, time, and a note that we'd have food, music, and a small backyard gathering. My husband's family RSVP'd immediately, all yeses. My parents, nothing, so I followed up. "Mom, did you get the invite?" I asked one night over the phone. "Oh yes, honey. We're just not sure we'll be free that weekend. Your sister's got some big things happening at work. It's a really important time for her." I blinked. "It's Ava's first birthday." "Yes, and that's special too. But Claire's up for a promotion, and we might be helping her prep for the announcement party." The announcement party. Not the promotion itself, just the event about the promotion. And suddenly I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. Ava had barely met her grandparents 3 times in her first year of life. Claire, on the other hand, had been their golden girl since day 1. Perfect GPA, cheer captain, Ivy League graduate, corporate ladder climber. And I was the one who got, maybe we'll make it. But still, I hoped. Maybe they'd come through. Maybe they'd remember. They didn't. The day of the party arrived, and everything was perfect. Except for the 2 empty chairs reserved for Nana and Papa. My husband's parents brought gifts and warm hugs. My college friend baked a cake shaped like a sunflower. Ava giggled as she tore wrapping paper and tried to eat ribbon. But my parents? Absent. The next morning, Claire posted the photos. Mom and Dad were standing beside her at some rooftop event, flutes of champagne in hand, smiling like a Hallmark ad. Caption: "Couldn't have done this without the best support system in the world." That was the moment I snapped. Not with a scream. Not with a text. I snapped in silence, and I started making a new guest list. That night, I stared at the ceiling while Ava slept soundly in her crib, unaware of the way her grandparents had chosen a photo op over her very first birthday. I kept thinking, if she were older, if she could understand, how would I explain this? Would I say, "They were busy, sweetheart"? Or worse, they had something more important? No. I wasn't going to let that pattern start now. The next morning, I opened the guest list again. The digital version, the one I'd saved for the party. I highlighted the names of my parents and my sister, and I hit delete. Then I opened a new list. I added the people who did show up. My in-laws, who brought balloons and helped set up chairs. My neighbor Janine, who held Ava so I could eat a slice of cake. My old college roommate, Megan, who drove 2 hours just to drop off a hand-knitted sweater and sing happy birthday. These were the people who showed up when it mattered. Not when it was convenient, not when it looked good on social media, but when it counted. And from that day on, they weren't just guests, they were family. But if you think my parents let it go, think again. 3 days after Ava's party, I got a group text. My mom, my dad, and Claire. The message? We're hosting a dinner this weekend to celebrate Claire's big promotion. Hope you and Ava can make it. No mention of missing the birthday. No apology. Just an invitation to clap for Claire. Again. I didn't respond. A few hours later, Claire messaged me privately. Hey, I know you're probably upset about Mom and Dad missing the party, but this weekend is really important. I could really use your support. Support. That word again. The one that always seemed to mean put your feelings aside for us. So I answered honestly. Claire, I threw a party for my baby. You threw one for your job. Guess which one Mom and Dad showed up to? Her reply came fast. This is why they don't take you seriously. You make everything about you. I stared at the message. This wasn't just about the birthday. This was a lifetime of being second place, of watching them beam when Claire spoke, but barely notice when I did. And I realized something else. Ava was watching me now. Learning from me. If I kept shrinking to keep the peace, she would grow up thinking that's what love looks like. Quiet, convenient, and conditional. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I made a decision. If my parents wanted to choose Claire over and over, that was fine. But I was going to start choosing us. It started with a message I sent to the guest list. The new one. The real one. Hi everyone, I just wanted to say thank you again for coming to Ava's birthday. Your presence meant more than you know. I've realized lately that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up. So from now on, I'm focusing on the people who do. I hit send. Then I closed the group chat with my parents and Claire, and I never looked back. A week later, my mom showed up at my daughter unannounced. She was holding a shopping bag, one of those upscale boutique ones, and wore that tight smile she always used when she was trying to pretend everything was fine. I thought I'd bring something. For Ava, she said. Inside the bag was a plush bunny, still with the price tag dangling from its ear. I looked at it, then back at her. She already had her birthday, I said flatly. Mom laughed, awkward. I know, sweetie. Things got a little hectic last weekend. Claire had a big promotion, I finished for her. Yeah, I saw the photos. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Listen, I know you're upset, but it was just bad timing. You know how much we love Ava, do I? Because loving someone means showing up for them. Not posting about someone else while ignoring the little girl blowing out her first candle. Mom walked into the living room, looked around and said, We were planning to stop by the next day, but then Claire needed help moving some stuff for her new office. It just slipped our minds. I felt my stomach twist. Slipped their minds. My baby's first birthday. You know what slipped my mind? I said. That I ever thought you'd put her first. Mom winced, but I didn't stop. For once, I wanted you to see me. Not just as Claire's sister. Not just as the one who doesn't need help. But as your daughter. As Ava's mom. She's only one, Mom said, like that made it better. She won't even remember. No, I said quietly. But I will. And I'm the one she'll look to when she wonders what love is supposed to look like. Mom sat down on the couch, the bunny still in her lap. I'm trying here, Liv. No, you're not, I replied. You're trying to smooth it over, to pretend missing something this important doesn't matter. She didn't answer. I'm not interested in pretend anymore, I said. So unless you're ready to really show up, and not just for Ava, but for me too, then I think it's better if we take some space. Her mouth opened, then closed. She stood up slowly, placed the bunny on the coffee table, and walked to the door. As she opened it, she turned back one last time. You're making a mistake. But here's the thing. I wasn't. Because that weekend, something unexpected happened. I received a text from Megan, my college friend. Hey, Janine and I were talking. Would you be open to doing a little monthly playgroup for the girls? Ava had made a new friend. So had I. No judgment. No pressure. No guilt. Just people who actually wanted to be there. That afternoon, Ava took her first steps. Right in front of me, Janine and Megan. We clapped and cheered, and I recorded every wobbly step. Later that night, I thought, if Mom had shown up when it mattered, she would have seen this. But she didn't. And maybe That was the point. The silence from my family lasted exactly 11 days. Then, the group chat came alive again. This time from my dad. He rarely texted, which meant this wasn't just casual. The message read, "Liv, I think it's time we talked. Claire's promotion party is this weekend, and it would mean a lot if you and Ava came. Family needs to stick together." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had too much to say. I stared at those words. Family needs to stick together. The irony burned. Where was that energy when Ava turned 1? Where was family unity when they skipped her birth altogether because Claire had a speaking engagement? Where was it when I sat in the hospital alone with a newborn while they were celebrating Claire's latest certificate? I'd spent years watching my parents bend over backwards for Claire, showing up for every promotion, every brunch, every career milestone, while treating my life like a footnote. It was always her stage. I was just background, so I decided to send a message. Not a text, not a passive-aggressive silence. An actual message. I printed one of the photos from Ava's birthday, the one where she's laughing with frosting on her face, surrounded by balloons and people who love her. On the back, I wrote, "Thank you for showing me who really shows up. Ava had a beautiful birthday, one she'll look back on with joy, even if the people who share her blood weren't there. You made your choice. I've made mine." I mailed the photo to my parents' house. 3 days later, Claire called. "Did you really send Mom a picture with that note?" "Yes," I said. "That was cruel, Liv. She's been crying all day." I stayed silent. "She feels like you're punishing her." I finally spoke. "Claire, I spent a year hoping they'd show up for my daughter. And on the day that mattered most, they picked your career. Again. Now they feel bad? Good. Maybe that's a sign they're finally feeling something close to what I felt." Claire scoffed. "It's not the same." "No," I said. "It never was." She hung up. That weekend, Ava had a play date with Megan's daughter. They made a mess in the backyard, giggling as they dumped bubbles into the kiddie pool. Later, Janine brought over cupcakes, and we all sat outside eating them as the sun went down. It wasn't a promotion party. It wasn't a rooftop celebration with champagne. It was better. It was real. And in that moment, I realized something important. I hadn't lost a family. I'd just started building one that finally made sense. Weeks passed. No calls, no texts. Not from my parents, not from Claire. At first, I kept checking my phone, half expecting some kind of apology, or at least an acknowledgement of what they'd done, but it never came. And slowly, I stopped waiting. Ava and I fell into our own rhythm. Mornings with cartoons and pancakes, afternoons at the park, evenings reading stories with her curled against my shoulder, the weight of her tiny body grounding me more than my parents' approval ever had. Then one night, I got an email, not from my family, but from Claire's boss. It was a mass forward of some corporate newsletter, one Claire had apparently CC'd me on by mistake. The subject line, "Congratulations to Claire Henderson, newly promoted Director of Marketing Strategy." There it was again, another title. Another milestone, another moment she expected the world to celebrate. Only this time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel jealous. I felt nothing. Because while Claire had her name in lights, I had something else. Peace. That weekend, Megan invited us to her daughter's second birthday party. It was simple, a rented space at a local community center with pizza, music, and a magician who clearly hated kids but tried anyway. And yet, it was perfect. Ava danced under string lights with frosting on her nose. I talked with other parents about toddler tantrums, preschool wait lists, and the exhaustion of being someone's everything. No guilt. No tension. No whispers behind my back. Just people who saw me. That night, I posted a photo of Ava asleep in her car seat, clutching a balloon in one hand and a slice of leftover cake in the other. The caption was short. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who chooses to show up. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was trembling. "Liv, We saw your post. Are you really cutting us out? We didn't mean to hurt you. It was just Claire needed us. It was her moment. I listened quietly, then played it again. Her moment. The words rang like a bell. That's what it always came down to. Claire's moment, Claire's needs, Claire's life. And I was done being collateral damage. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new document on my computer. Titled it, Guest List Ava's Life. At the top, I wrote, only people who show up. A few days later, I got a knock at the door. It was Claire. She stood on my porch with a bottle of wine in one hand and a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Can we talk? She asked. I hesitated. Ava was napping. My stomach tightened. But I opened the door. She walked in like she still belonged. Glanced around the living room like she was judging the furniture. Same old Claire. I didn't come to fight, she said, sitting without being asked. I think this whole thing got blown way out of proportion. Out of proportion. My daughter's first birthday. Skipped. My parents choosing a champagne toast over a baby girl's milestone. Claire, I said carefully. This wasn't one bad weekend. This was the final straw, she sighed. I know Mom and Dad messed up, but you're being so dramatic about this. You're acting like they don't care about Ava. They don't, I said. Not in the way she needs. Not in the way that matters. Claire rolled her eyes. You always expect everything to be about you. No, I said. I just expected something to be about Ava. But they made it clear, again, that you come first. Every time, she laughed bitterly. So what, you're cutting us all off? Over one party? I looked her dead in the eye. I'm not cutting anyone off. I'm just no longer inviting people who don't show up. She blinked. That's petty. No, I said, standing up. It's parenting. She didn't get it. She never would, but that was okay. Because this wasn't about convincing Claire anymore. This was about protecting Ava from ever feeling like she had to compete for love. I walked her to the door. She hesitated, then asked, So what now? Are you seriously going to let her grow up without knowing her family? I opened the door. She's already growing up knowing her family. She knows who hugs her when she cries, who shows up to dance recitals, who remembers her favorite bedtime story. That's the only family she needs. Claire didn't reply. She walked out without another word, the bottle of wine still unopened in her hand. That night, I added another name to Ava's guest list, Megan. Next to it I wrote, brings her own cupcakes, always stays late to help clean. Then Janine, calls just to check in, brought sunscreen for everyone at the park last weekend. Then Karen, my elderly neighbor, knits baby blankets, keeps Ava stocked with stickers, treats her like a granddaughter. Page by page, the list grew, and not once did I miss the names I'd deleted. Summer turned to fall. Ava started daycare. I started sleeping again, not because life got easier, but because it got quieter. No more calls laced with guilt. No more family group texts I wasn't really part of. No more bending myself into silence to keep the peace. One Friday afternoon, as I packed Ava's backpack with her favorite bunny and a snack, she looked up and asked something simple. Is Grandma coming to see my school? I froze. We hadn't talked about my parents in weeks, not because I was hiding them, but because they hadn't come up. Until now, I knelt down. No, sweetheart. Grandma's not coming. She blinked. Why not? I chose my words carefully. Because sometimes people miss important things. And when that happens a lot, it means maybe they aren't the best people to keep around. She thought for a second, then shrugged. Okay, that was it. No tears. No follow-up questions, because children are wise in ways adults forget. They don't need elaborate explanations. They need consistency. Later that week, I hosted a small gathering for Ava's daycare friends. Nothing big, some apple cider, cookies, and a leaf painting craft station in the backyard, and yet it felt like magic. Megan showed up early to help set up. Janine brought extra markers. Karen sat on a bench knitting as the kids played, pausing every so often to wave and smile at Ava like she was the star of the show. At one point, one of the other parents, a dad named Alex, leaned over and said, Your daughter's really loved. You can tell, I smiled. Yeah, she is. Because for the first time, I wasn't hoping someone would show up. They were already here. The next day, I got another text from my mom. It was just a photo. An old one, Ava at 6 months old, asleep in my mom's arms. Underneath it, the message, "We miss her. And you." I stared at it for a long time. It was the kind of photo that might have broken me once. That might have made me second-guess everything. But not now, because here's what I knew that my mom didn't. Love isn't just remembering what once was. It's showing up for what is. So I didn't reply. Instead, I closed the photo, walked into Ava's room, and helped her hang her newest drawing on the wall, a picture of her, surrounded by smiling faces holding balloons. In big purple letters she had written, "My family." Not a single one looked like my parents. 3 months later, Ava turned 2. Her birthday fell on a sunny Saturday. We threw a picnic at the park near our house, the same place where she'd taken her first steps just months earlier. This time, I didn't bother sending an invitation to my parents. Not out of spite, out of peace. The guest list was simple and perfect. Megan and her daughter, Janine and her twins, Karen with her homemade cookies, Ava's daycare friends, their parents, and us. We had a butterfly cake, streamers tied to trees, and music playing from a little Bluetooth speaker. Ava wore a crown made of felt and glitter, and at one point, she stood on top of a picnic table and shouted, "I'm 2!" Everyone clapped. She beamed. It wasn't fancy. There were no themed characters, no custom balloon arches, no photographer capturing every moment. But it was the kind of party where every single person looked at Ava like she mattered, because she does. That night, after all the cake crumbs were swept up, and Ava had collapsed into bed with her glitter crown still askew, I sat on the couch and looked through the photos. I saw love in every frame. Not performative love, not holiday card love. Real love. People who showed up, people who stayed late, people who asked questions about Ava's favorite songs and knew the names of her stuffed animals. And I thought about the list. The one I started the night my parents missed her first birthday. The one titled, "Guest List, Ava's Life." I opened it again, scrolled past the names I'd added over time, and then, at the very bottom, I wrote, "Ava, center of it all. Loved. Chosen, seen, always. No footnotes, no fine print, no maybe next year." She wasn't waiting for anyone to show up anymore, because everyone who mattered was already here. And if someday Ava asks about those empty chairs at her first birthday party, I'll tell her the truth. Not with bitterness, not with pain, but with power. I'll say, "Baby, the people who didn't come that day helped us make room for the ones who always will." And then I'll remind her of the one rule we've built our life around. You don't need everyone to love you, just the right ones. So if you've ever felt like second best in your own family, if you've ever watched them celebrate someone else while forgetting you, let this be your reminder. You can write a new guest list. You can choose joy over guilt. You can build your own table and fill it with people who clap when you stand, who stay when you fall, who celebrate when you grow. Because blood may be thick, but love, real, chosen love, is what makes a home. So like this video if it resonated, and subscribe for more stories that remind us family isn't who we're born to, it's who shows up. And shows up again